All right, roll call, please.
All board members are present this evening.
All right, I've got a couple of agenda changes that I would like to do. The first item is we have Diane Needham here who requested to do a little PowerPoint piece on our cemeteries, and we agreed to squeeze her in, so we'll have a little bit of fun with that. And that'll be item 7B. And then there was another item that's a grant application request, and I'd like to put that at item 9M for under new business. Anybody else have anything they'd like to correct or change? Or all right, if I could get a motion to approve the
Motion to approve
amended.
the amended agenda item.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, consent agenda. Motion to approve.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported.
Mrs.
amended?
We didn't amend the consent agenda, we just amended the whole agenda.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
Yes.
Right, vote please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, announcements and information required. Township offices will be closed Monday, February 19th in observance of President's Day. In your packet, there's also some information that relates to our joint sessions that we had in January 18th, and we're going to carry forward with the use of our current consultants to move those questions that we had started in that session, start moving those forward. So I just wanted to let everybody know we're going to be addressing the zoning, all the ordinances, zoning maps. So we're going to be drilling down in and looking at the details of these things and make sure that we're heading into the future and do the best that we can do with that. The past few opportunities where we were supposed to do these reviews, we kind of rubber stamped them, which is all right. I mean, if you don't have any reason to change it, but I think it's time to do some major looking at how our ordinances and zoning and things apply. So we're moving forward to that. The next item is public comment. Anybody have any public comment they'd like to make?
You can do public comment now, is that
Yes.
what you're saying?
Well, what we're going to ask you to do is to stand up at the podium and give your name and address.
Mr. Hamel, board has a 3-minute limit, is that correct?
Yes, we do. I'm sorry, I should say. We have a clock here so we can make you nervous while you're doing it.
I'm not that long-winded. I'm on the Board of Trustees for Harvey Lake Estate Subdivision
Name and address.
Association. My name is Donna Hubbard. What am I looking at?
Address.
1556 Pruitt Drive in Highland, 48356. And I'm here to represent homeowners that are directly affected by an operation called the Red Poppy that's operating illegally. We have sent letters to the board and to the Planning Commission. We want you not to move forward with trying to do a zoning variance in what is now a residential area. They claim that they want approval to operate as a bed and breakfast. They are not doing that. They are operating as everything but. They have no licenses. I've talked to Oakland County Health Department, and we would like enforcement done at this stage of the game. They are not following any of the ordinances. They have a website up and running. They're also working in cooperation with Huron Valley Schools to advertise this business, and we're strongly opposed to it. This is a nice, quiet, tiny lake. It's been that way for years. There's no motors. We do not need a banquet facility across the lake from us. So we'd like you to seriously consider putting a stop to this. Anything else? Am I missing anything? Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. All right, any other public comment?
I just second it. And I mean, I lived there from the get-go, so I think, seriously, for it to be operating, as a retreat center, whatever, I just think it's not good. I mean, I heard it this summer. I came home from, dinner with my husband during the summer, and, just I could hear a DJ playing, just bouncing off the lake, and it's just not right. And then also too, the original master suite is now has a bunch of bunk beds in it, and I feel like they kind of knew what they were doing when they developed the whole property before they got any kind of say so from anyone, and I just think that they just knew what they were doing. So I don't think it's right.
All right, thank you. Your name and address, please.
My name?
Name and address.
Nicole King, 1750 Pruitt Drive in Highland.
All right, thank you, Nicole.
Question, how many
Yeah.
people are on the, that you represented in the association?
How many homes?
Yeah,
83.
83 homes, okay.
How long has the board been aware of these violations?
It's probably been 6 months or so, sometime in the last late summer, fall. I'm trying to think when the first wedding incident was.
That
last
was
summer.
like June or
Yeah.
July of last year.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
when we found out what was going on.
Yeah.
But to be honest, like, it's posted everywhere. To Donna's point, it's online, it's at the Huron Valley State Bank, so I don't know how any of us can miss it. You know what I mean? So,
Yes, sir.
Just for brief information, January 29th, the fire marshal and I did do a inspection of the property. There were violations noted. I don't believe it's been issued yet, but we are in the process.
so
from
what
our
kind of
perspective.
violations have been there?
I
What-
can't really talk, it
Oh,
was the fire marshal
okay.
doing it,
Okay,
but we have visited them.
yeah.
We're addressing it through fire prevention.
Because I
fire
lived there
safety.
originally, so that's my father built the place, my parents built the place. So, I do know that when the place was purchased, there were squatters that were there, and I do know from, people that I know that have visited the place for retreats and such, that there are certain areas that are still not, you still can't enter certain areas because people have squatted in the past, and they're not cleaned up, so they're not presentable for the public.
And all I can
So-
tell you is that we did life safety
Yeah.
inspection on the property
So-
based on what they are looking at.
And to that point, I feel like if you're gonna, to move forward and operate a business in that far off the road, I just think it's not a good thing, so.
Okay, I do wanna, there is some other stuff that has occurred. The county has closed down the swimming pool, and that has now gone to the state level. So, there are things that we're trying to do to bring the thing into alignment, so, it's not that we're just sitting on it. I want you to know that.
I have a question about it, Rick.
Your name and address, please?
Dennis Wilson, 1520 South Drive in Highland. You're talking about the mansion and the...
Yes, sir.
Yeah. They've been operating for all these months already. The township knows that they've been operating over there, that they don't have the permits, that they're not zoned, but nothing's been done about it. Is there a liability for the township for not doing something to close them down if somebody were to drink alcohol there or eat there and get sick, have an accident after they've been drinking?
Gary?
Because you haven't closed them down and are letting them operate?
Can you address that?
Probably not, but I'm sitting here hearing the facts for the first time. I don't have any background on it. Generally speaking, you're not going to be liable for not enforcing an ordinance if you even have one that's enforceable. I don't.
All right. Okay, any other comments? We appreciate you coming out. and do appreciate your comments, and we
How many
will.
people are from the neighborhood who are here? Just, I mean, I see lots of folks coming in. Okay. All right.
And if I could, again, I'm sorry that I keep honing up here, but so have lived in that place and having a business that is a bar, and we pay huge fines for liquor liability, insurance, all that. His point is very valid. For them to be under the radar and for me to be paying at a super premium, not cool. So.
Okay. Well, I have no personal knowledge of it being a bar or any of that stuff, so I can't attest to that, but I appreciate that, Nicole, thank you. All right, we're gonna, no more comments, and we'll move on.
Yeah, I do have one more question. Donna Hubbard, 1556 Pruitt Drive. Are there ordinances that, when we're talking about?
Not now.
We're talking
In
about
the
what?
meeting. I'm in the meeting.
Okay, gotta hang that up, Diane.
Just turn it off, please.
Yep.
So are we saying that they have violated certain ordinances and now that's being addressed? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
So we've sent the letters, we've had conversations, she's been in front of the planning commission, there's a lot of process that's been going on with this, so it's not just been shuffled under the carpet. I can guarantee you that. So it's been going on long enough, and I understand everybody's opinion on that. So I appreciate the information. So, all right, we'll carry on then. We got a little bit to go here. So, all right, thanks again. If you guys don't want to hang around for the rest of the meeting, feel free to wander off if we've covered your stuff, and we do appreciate your coming. All right, the next item, pending business, is we got a presentation tonight. Chief, would you like to handle that, please?
Sure. In 1987, we lost a firefighter in a training accident in Milford. Actually, we lost 2 firefighters. One from Highland, one from Milford, and one from Lyon Township. With that tragedy, we tried to bring some good out of it. Every year we recognize a firefighter from our department for going above and beyond the line of duty to provide for the community, provide for the department, provide for our brothers and sisters. It's my pleasure this year to announce firefighter Haley Kenworthy as Firefighter of the Year for Highland Township. We can give her a real quick round of applause. The award was presented at our annual firefighters banquet, and I come this close to getting her to cry, and she didn't do it. So I'm going to try again real hard today. Just to make comment, Haley has been just amazing. Tonight she was on duty, which is why she was almost late getting here. But since January of last year, our firefighters provide 24-hour coverage for the community. We have a paid-on-call department. These people have full-time jobs that require a lot of their time, and what they provide to the community is above and beyond. With that being said, Haley has gone beyond that. She's done things for the department, been involved with things for the department. 2 years ago, she created an event called No Child Without a Christmas. It's a fundraiser to benefit Goodfellows, help those less fortunate in town have a decent Christmas, have a decent holiday. Second year in a row, she just made it. It was great the first year. This year was just amazing, as you can tell. It's one of her bosses over there. But anyways, I'd just like to recognize Haley and say thank you from the bottom of my heart. With Haley tonight is her mother, Kimberly Kenworthy. Raise your hand, Mom. You should be very proud. Her grandmother, Barbara Martin. And while I appreciate both of them, the one I appreciate the most, Chad Went, is her boyfriend. He doesn't give her any grief. He doesn't give her any grief above and beyond normal relationship stuff, but he lets her do what she needs to do, and she is just, like I said, she is just a stellar part of our team. Thank you all three, and thank you, Haley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a couple pictures with them and the board?
Sure.
Come on, Mom, Grandma. Dad.
Let's kind of pull up so we can have them. Could be worse.
Right here.
Where do we go? Let's go out here, we'll keep behind you.
It's a lot of people here.
Take a sideways picture.
Sideways?
Sit in the front, we'll stand behind you. We'll stand behind you.
All right, here, you see? A tall one. Not over there.
1, 2, 3. Just hang on.
Oh, I wish I would have given you one. No. Limburger. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Great job on those fundraisers. Great job. Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Oh, yeah. Okay, 7B, Diane Needham. I'll give you a little precursor here. So Diane is there you go, Diane, why don't you take over?
I'm a lifelong resident of Highland Township, lived here all my life. I've belonged to the Historical Society since its inception in 1992. I've written a newsletter for the Historical Society for the past 25 years. You figure 2 articles, 9 months. It's over 300 stories that I've been able to tell about people who lived in Highland. So to me, a cemetery is very important. 30 years ago, Bill Bryan asked me to walk the cemeteries, record the stones, and put it all on record, and which I was more than happy to do. And as I did that, I discovered so much information about how families intermarried. Wardlows, Leonards, Waterburys, St. John's, that they all just marry into each other, and it was fascinating to me. And so if you should ever go and look up my name on Google, there it is, and I have a couple documents on the 2 cemeteries. To me, Benjamin Franklin's comment couldn't be more relevant today. Show me your cemeteries and I will tell you what kind of people you have. Our 2 cemeteries are over, well, West Highland is over 150 years old, as well as Highland Cemetery. West Highland, the first burial was in 1835. It wasn't actually a real cemetery until the Highland Baptist Church bought it in 1841. And then we have Gladstone's comment, show me the manner in which a nation cares for its dead. And I will measure with mathematical exactness the tender mercies of its people, their respect for the laws of the land, and their loyalty to high deeds. Our cemeteries are old. The stones are old. Some of them are crumbling. Many of them are broken. Trees that were planted 150 years ago are dying. They are crowding out the stones. So here's a monument that I was instrumental in in starting, and I'd like to do one for Highland Cemetery as well, but this is West Highland Cemetery. The wording is on both sides, giving the history of the cemetery. And the cemetery belonged to the Baptist Church until 1915, and then in 1977, the association just didn't have enough people to keep it going, and so the township took over the cemetery. And then this marker, which took 3 long years to finally get from the state, because this is a state historical site, was put up, and we had a special program for it. As I said, Highland Cemetery was established in 1849. Now, as you may know, Michigan was open to ownership back in 1835. And there were so many people who came, 60, 70, 80 years old, who came here. It absolutely amazes me. John Mudge was a chaplain in the Revolutionary War. He died in 1839, and he was over 70 years old. Here are just a few examples of the funerary art that is found. These are all found in West Highland, but there's a lot of really stunning art done on these different markers in Highland Cemetery as well. Again, you see in this top picture how dark, how the tree branches are coming down over the markers, and how close the markers are to the trees. And the trees are literally uprooting the markers. Going back to the newsletter that I told you about, and with over 300 articles, this is Wyndham Hewitt. Thankfully, he had a diary which his family kept. He served in the Civil War, and then he kept a diary afterwards. And so I've been able to transcribe that and put it in the newsletter. This is Spencer Lee and his wife, Sarah. And then this is James Rowe. The Rowe family, of course, was instrumental in the founding of Highland Township, and James's father, Squire, was a representative to the state legislature. And this is Stone Row, which is a state historical site. Now there's, as I said, there's so many old markers. Of course, we've had vandalism, which has caused a lot of markers to be broken. But one of my bugaboos is these conduit pipes that are used as flag holders. The state has designated that township cemeteries are to have regular flag markers. Conduit pipes, no, sorry, that's not a flag marker. Good place to put a flag, but not a flag marker. We have lots of Civil War soldiers. There's over 60 soldiers buried in the 2 cemeteries. George Mills' stone is really getting old and needs to be cleaned, and this is a Civil War marker. Asa Clark in Highland Cemetery, you can no longer even read his marker. And I've been in contact with a descendant hoping that she would apply for a new marker, but so far that hasn't happened. This is my marker for my husband and I. We ran the Ridgemere Berry Farm, and so I had that put on the marker. And that's where I'm going to be buried someday. And I want people to come and see that marker, as I do when I walk up to it to remember my husband. And the many years, the 29 years we were married, they were precious years. And he left a great legacy. He has a proper flag marker. Some of the problems we have are that people don't realize how big shrubs get, and they cover up the markers so that you can't even read them. And then here on Maud Lockwood's marker are all these iris, and if you've ever planted iris, you know it grows like a weed. And then the grass comes up. And how do you keep it looking nice? Maud, I'm sure she was a Needham. As far as I'm concerned, that iris can go. I can't imagine how many problems the sexton must have, or Willenberg must have, in keeping up the grounds and the cemeteries, trying to get around the markers, trying to get around the flowers, the silk flowers, the plastic birds that you can find there. I've even seen a 6-pack of Pepsi on a grave. Why Clara May has a flag, I don't know, but this is Clara May Beaches. Not that she wasn't a great lady, but why she deserves a flag, I'm not sure. But anyway, you can see that her marker really needs cleaning. So here we have another kind of dark view of the cemetery. This is West Highland. This is Albert Goen, who built the stone pillars in front of Highland and built this one. His wife was buried in Highland. I don't recall exactly what they wanted him to do, but at any rate, he got mad and had his wife dug up and moved to West Highland. Another marker, no longer kept up. This pot needs to go. These statues need to go. We need to keep our markers clean and so they can be mowed around and kept up. This is a great way of putting flowers around the markers. Both of these work very well. The Beaumonts are one of the few that I know of that have a cement pad over their burials. Here we have Alpha Scarlet. Her marker is really hard to read. You have to get right down on your hands and knees practically because of the shrubbery around it. Another old marker with a tree of life. Here's Abner Hyde. He died in 1837. Thankfully, his marker is still standing, but you can imagine how many years has it been that that marker's been there, and it's still there, thankfully. Now, someone thankfully took some cement and somehow carved and cut the tree down and saved George Lee's monument. He was only 11 years old when he died. Another kind of dark, dreary, you know, when Nancy interviewed me for the October issue of the Spinal Column and asked me about ghost stories, I thought, are cemeteries ghost stories? Wasn't for me at all, because I'm really into tapophilia. I love cemeteries. I cherish them. I want to get to know the people that were buried there. Everyone deserves to be remembered. So improvements we can make. Well, these old trees that have been there for over 150 years, their branches are hanging down, they're dying in the middle. They really need attention. We need to clean our grave markers and repair those that are broken, and there's a lot that are buried in the ground. In fact, back in the 90s, Ed Lynch came, and I don't know, thought he spent several $1,000s having these small stones made up and put in front of those stones that couldn't be read any longer. It was Highland Cemetery. There are so many lots that are not being fully used. Back when the cemeteries were first laid out, when you bought a lot, you bought 8 burial sites. One is owned by John Dunham. Well, there were 3 John Dunhams. Which one are we talking about? There's no record of any burials for John Dunham, so we don't know if he's buried there or not. At West Highland, I have 6 pages of burials that aren't recorded in the township records. And today, of course, we have people being cremated, and people think, well, they can just go bury them or dig a little hole and put the ashes in there and call it good. How are they going to be remembered? How are those people going to be remembered? We need, of course, to buy the proper flag holders. Going back to the northwest section, if you've ever driven all the way back in back of where Father Leo is buried, there's this big area. I don't know how many lots are in there, but that area can't be used for burials because that's where a lot of debris, and it's all hidden by shrubbery and small trees. So we need to clean up the debris around the markers and remove the shrubbery where necessary. I think a lot of people think, well, okay, this tree is planted right next to this grave marker. It belongs to the person who bought that lot. No, they have the burial rights. They don't own the lot itself. So those shrubs that are in the way can be cut down or taken out if necessary. Now, we do have guidelines put out by the township, and I want to focus on just a few of those. First of all, markers and memorials should be made of stone and should be durable. And the most important one, no flowers, shrubs, trees, or vegetation shall be planted without the approval of the cemetery sexton or township clerk. And flower beds are supposed to be restricted to 18 inches around the gravestone. If you walk in Highland especially, that is That is not true, and nothing's being done, and I'm not sure how to enforce that. People put up streamers and balloons, and they leave these silk flowers for somebody to take care of. Well, that's somebody has to be some volunteers or the sexton. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to our cemeteries to make them beautiful again. I want our cemeteries to be like a park. I have a picture of the Kunkel family on Memorial Day having a picnic at the cemetery where their family lot was. And that wasn't unusual. People used to do that. I would no more think of doing that today than anything else. But I would like to see people feel free to walk through the cemeteries and not be hitting their heads on overhanging limbs. I don't want to have to worry about old trees falling over and breaking up any of the grave markers and causing damage. I don't want to see our grave markers upheaved by tree roots. These trees need to be cut down and the stumps taken out. There's lots of things that need to be done, and we need your help. We need the help of our citizens, volunteers, people interested in making our cemeteries beautiful again.
All right, thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Did good. And for the public that is here, I want everybody to know that in this budget, we allocated a minimum of $50,000 to put towards the cemeteries. And the first project that we are going to attempt to conquer is the trees and shrubs. And that's one of the things that will be on the agenda a little later, the selection of the company that we had 11 companies that were interested in doing so. So another thing is, you didn't say anything about the fence, and I wanted to let people know that we're going to have a new fence, and it's a good thing that I didn't
At Highland.
at Highland that I didn't do it this fall because somebody ran into the fence this winter and took out a piece of the old stuff. But that fence is completely corroded through. It's barely hanging on by its two front teeth. And what we will be doing is slicing that into memorial pieces. And probably, I think maybe we'll figure out how we're going to put those up for sale, but they'll be available to purchase to have a piece of memorial of the cemetery for maybe garden art or that type of thing. And that'll help pay for the some of the work that we do in the cemetery as well. So thank you very much, and I think it's really critical that we take care of these things. So, all right, we'll move on to the next item. Item 8, pending business. This was something that came before the board a couple months ago, and what we did is we pushed it forward because we were going to have a meeting with the joint boards and ZBA, Planning Commission, and the Township Board, and part of it was to talk about some of the things that we see as changes in Highland and how we can address keeping Highland rural, as well as how we address, the growth that is going to occur to it. And that also involves businesses. How do you keep your businesses in the areas where you help to maintain the rural atmosphere? And so what has come up from that is we have what we know is a commercial district, and that commercial district is guided by some zoning that basically applied OS office to particular lots, and then there's C1, which is a commercial. There's, I think there's some C2 in there, but there's kind of a broad range of different. Let's see if I can pull this up and get some maps here for you. Maybe not. It's fighting me, so rather than fight it, we'll just have to go on with it. So anyways, the Planning Commission was put to the task to consider this there were two parcels that were brought forward at the corner, northwest corner of Lone Tree Road. And those parcels are zoned OS, or office. And it's office like commercial. What came from that was the property owner showed up at the planning commission meeting and requested that if they could change the zoning to C1, it'd be more likely that he could sell the property. And he's owned it for 40 years. One of the things with zoning is that financial problems or issues are not really part of what you would apply to being a problem, but in that 40 years, he spent $100,000 in property taxes. If you can't sell the property, and we continue to charge, this is my opinion, I'll have to make that clear, we continue to charge property taxes, then it's kind of like taking the property without due consideration. So in looking at the process, I think what we need to do is look at the whole district there and look at the empty parcels that are there and consider that our commercial district. There's 16,000 cars that drive past that every day. There's people that own those parcels that have been unable to sell them. We've got a glut of office. People they're not looking to build office buildings, so it really doesn't set it up for good use. So C1 is a very close application. It's a low impact commercial to a degree. So what we have before us is the board is supposed to make a decision as to whether to go along with the planning commission in this case or to make an alternative decision. So it's on our plate to make a decision on where we want to go with this. Like I said, planning commission recommended against it. Changing it, leaving it, they want to leave it as OS. It was not a unanimous vote. But in this case, I felt that we needed to bring this up at the board level and have that discussion. So I think what we'll do is in the proper way, make a motion to approve the zoning change from OS to C1 for parcel 11-27-351-011 and 012. It is for applicant Gary and Joan Saradarian. So on that note, I made a motion. Would somebody like to second the motion? Okay, supported. Now we'll have discussion on that. Yes, Mary Pat.
I serve on the planning commission and was in on the discussion on this, and there were a lot of things that were discussed and taken into consideration. Another one that they're talking about, that corner piece of property there and the traffic, because it's the main thing, the high school coming in and out of there, and there is a lot of residential houses around there. So I am not in favor of changing this due to the discussion that we had at the planning commission.
Okay, anybody else?
Would the impact of traffic be the difference if it was developed as an office?
Yeah, well, what they were saying is that the office generally offices are Monday through Friday, 5 o'clock, office buildings. And, you wouldn't have, and this could possibly be something that's open a lot more hours, where there'd be a lot more traffic on that corner. And that isn't when high school is in, but it's still, that was one of the things they were considering. And there is a lot of residential around there also. So those were just some of the things that they discussed.
Joe?
What's the impact going to be when the soccer field's open and all that, as far as traffic?
It's gonna go up.
It's going to go way up. The advantage of that corner is it has a stoplight.
Yeah.
The parcel to the south of it is commercial, C1. There's parcels within 400 or 500 feet of it that are also C1. The residential is in excess of 300 feet away. It's residential that's on, if you were to do the diagonal, which would be the southeast corner, it's a T-bone, so it's still not exactly a corner. The first house there is rented, it's a rental unit. The second house is also a rental unit owned by an attorney that actually operates out of that home. Then there's a couple of houses that are residential, then there's a couple more that are rental units. So from the standpoint of that as a commercial zone, I think it's pretty clear. There used to be MVP, which has been purchased and will probably be repurposed when the sports facility is there. You've got the commercial of the ice cream. You've got the 2 strip malls that are right at Watkins Boulevard. To the north of that, you've got a commercial. You've got to the right on the east side, you have the gas station that is being somebody's purchased that and going to reopen that. Then you've got the restaurants, which are commercial. So you can see that it's a commercial district. And the key is, this is once again my part of the discussion, the key is that the population's been very clear that they want to keep M59 the scenic corridor. In other words, when you come down M59, the comment's always, we don't want to look like White Lake, we don't want to look like Waterford, we don't want to look like Heartland. And the only way you're going to do that is to keep the commercial off of M59. Well, you have to have commercial someplace. As times change, the population grows, there are going to be those applications that'll fit. And we do know that, the cost of transportation is higher, gas is kind of okay now, we don't know what that's going to do, but you want to shop local, we need to have local. You can't push it all into the little downtown district, because if you do that, the next thing you know, you'll be knocking down historical buildings. So you need to be looking at that from a historical retail perspective. So in the overall picture, my personal opinion is to make it C1 is innocuous. Yes?
I'm looking at this map, what decision-making goes into, I guess, I'm looking at all the commercial up and down Milford Road, and then there's that little spot of the pink, which is the office. Where does that, I guess my question, I don't know how this all works out, but how come that little section is the only one, in this part of the map, it's the pink area, I guess it's pink colored, compared to more of a, it's not really brown, I guess, I'm a mauve, maybe, I don't know. My color tone, or wife would know better.
Well, if you look
so what makes the decision when you go into something like this? That's the only spot that's on the map, and the rest of it's all commercial.
C1, yeah.
And everything else is just that little sliver right there. So that's my question is, when was that decision made, and how did it, I guess nobody here probably was involved in the decision, but what goes into making that decision to leave that little spot there? Why wasn't it all, I guess, commercial from the get-go, I guess is my question.
Brian, the Planning Commission puts a lot of thought and research into all of that. Like Mary was saying, they consider current uses and future uses, and I think it's a really bad precedence to start going against what they recommend. They do a public hearing, they do their research, they are instrumental in that master plan and the zoning map itself, and I don't agree with changing it either. Whenever people buy property, the risk you take is, can you sell it, or can you do what you think you want to do with it? It's not our responsibility to make somebody whole because they paid $100,000 in property tax. If you added up how much property tax you paid on your house, you think you could get that out of it by the time you sell it? That shouldn't even be a consideration, is what I'm saying. Our consideration is it a good use? Is it a good idea? And those are the things that we count on the Planning Commission to research and give us recommendations on.
Well, I was at the Planning Commission meeting that night, as a matter of fact. And the rationale given was the school. The students leave about 2:30, what time do the students get?
2:02 they get out.
2:02, and by 3:30 they're gone. So you got an hour's worth of, time where the students are engaged or involved, or very early in the morning when they're kind of wandering in, but when they leave in mass. When you talk about residential, the parcel behind that, if you look at this long purple thing here, has been owned by the phone company forever, and the next house is right about here, which is close to 600 feet away from it. And like I said, you need to have places for commercial use, and to try to detail by blocking out different spots so that you can dictate that that's gonna be office or a commercial use, to me, it just is, it's kinda like we'll make these office, we'll make these something else. And that's kind of the approach. That's not what was said at the meeting. But the commentary that was used as a basis, I didn't feel personally it had the merit to deny it. And there were planning commissioners that were kind of surprised by it as well, wondering what's wrong with it. If you think the gas station's a bad thing to have there, and Duke's, and 5 Star, and the John Deere tractor place and everything else, then they've been there for years. How, why beat the thing to pieces and make it so some people can't use the property?
What's the potential future of improving Lone Tree there as far as a better intersection overall, regardless of what we change the zoning?
It's already got the turn lane and everything else in it. So
They're going to get overall brought back even deeper to make it better overall.
Anybody that would build there would probably have to make improvements at the intersection.
Mary Pat, was there any public comment expressing concerns about this potential change?
No, there was none.
So none of the residents around
Or
were objecting to it?
No, there was no one present.
Okay.
All right. Any other comment?
And there's been no other purchases for any other office space or commercial anyways. Most of those things are still pretty empty regardless of what they are.
Right.
So I don't know what difference it would make.
So
Well, what I mean is that if we change it, it's not gonna.
Doesn't mean
there's
automatically
no
somebody's gonna
likelihood
buy
that
it.
tomorrow it's gonna become a drugstore.
Correct.
All right. So on that note, we get a vote, please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
No.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Just one note, the ordinance that was introduced back on November 8th, Section 3, which is the effective date, I will provide Tammy with some modified language for that, that I'm more comfortable with.
Okay, that'd be great.
Is that?
I said that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, but the legislature made a really complicated statement on how zoning ordinances take effect, but
Oh.
I got it down to like 6 lines, I think.
All right. Gary charges by the line, so. No, that's not true. All right, the next item, new business, 9A. Resolution number 1804 to prohibit commercial motor vehicles as defined in the Motor Vehicle Code 257.7A, except local deliveries on Livingston Road from M59 to Milford Road. We had passed a resolution a while back that because there were large semis coming down Livingston Road heading east, and they would try and make the turn heading south onto Milford Road and nail the walk, do not walk signs, and the pole and things like that. So, and it's very dangerous because they can't make that, they can't do a wide turn most of the time. So we made that resolution, but it turns out that there were some issues with the language. Is that right, Lieutenant
It was
Snyder?
very generic, it just said trucks, so with that being said, any pickup truck, any small landscaping truck could have been cited for that. So we just wanted to be specific for commercial vehicles, meeting the motor vehicle code, which is over 26,000 pounds. So.
All right, so this is a correction to make it more clear so that it doesn't restrict all truck traffic.
I would move to approve resolution number 18-04 to prohibit commercial motor vehicles except local deliveries on Livingston Road from M59 to Milford Road, and repeal resolution number 16-19.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Any discussion on that? Okay, vote please.
I vote yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, 9B. This one relates to, it's Resolution 18-05, Board of County Road Commissioners, Oakland County Agreement for Traffic Control Device. In the spring, summer, we are going to, through a grant from MDOT for Safe Routes to Schools, we're going to be doing some sidewalks in Highland for access to the schools. Well, involved in that are two signs, school crossing signs with flashers, and we're required by Oakland County and MDOT to have these signs with these flashers. And you've probably seen them around over off, if you go Harvey Lake Road, there's one by the schools over there. Well, those require electricity, they require maintenance, so on and so forth. So the county asks us to do it's essentially a tri-party agreement on this. And when we did this, I think we did get the school to agree. What we were trying to do is you'd have three parts to it. The maintenance is actually about $3 per sign per month, which is pretty low. I think it might even be a year. It's really low. It's really, there's nothing to it. And at the time, we needed to keep this project rolling, and in light of the school having enough problems of their own, whether we agree with them or not, it didn't seem like a lot of money to accept responsibility for their third. So what we did is we put together an agreement. It turns out that I think the school has agreed now, so we'll have to modify this.
There's a modified copy on
Is there?
everybody's
Okay.
spot, because it came in after we sent out the packet, their agreement to take on a third of it.
All right, I didn't catch that at the time, sorry.
Tammy, and do you have the modified resolution before
Yes.
the board?
Yep, I got it. Basically, it's the same thing, except for the schools will be taking a third of it, and our portion will be reduced to a third.
You need to see that, or?
No, he
No.
sent it to me.
Okay, good. All right, so anyways, very minor investment involvement in it, and so this is to get two flashing lights and signs on Livingston Road for school safety or crossing safety. So
I
you
would
like,
move to approve resolution 18-5 for the Board of County Road Commission, Oakland County Agreement for Traffic Control Device.
Support.
3 supports on that.
All
right. Moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Salvia?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, next item 9C is Freedom Works agreement for lawn maintenance. What I wanted to, you should have received also some additional information, I think, not on this one, but
Oh.
now that's on the other, the tree thing, so. Back when we were doing our budget in 2017, we had a retiring employee who was the head of our maintenance. And what I had done was recommended promoting the second maintenance individual into his position. And then taking the budget for the second person and applying it towards lawn maintenance. Now, the reason for having 2 maintenance people was that we mowed. So we had mowed township properties. And so what I did is I figured if we do away with having the maintenance guy do the mowing, you can eliminate the need for the mowers, which are probably about 25 years old now. The gas, the oil, and the issues with having to, safety, all that stuff. And then the upside is that there's a company, a group in Highland that helps people that are developmentally disabled be active in the workforce, and they're called Freedom Works. And we already have them doing 2 different parks where they mow sections of the park and pathways and cleanups and things like that. And my recommendation then was that we would have Freedom Works give us a quote on what it would take to do all the mowing. So what you have in front of you is that quote, and the quote is for by the month, and there's 7 months, and the areas that they recover is the activity center, the annex, which is 205 West Livingston, the Highland Depot Station, which is at the corner of Milford Road and M59, Duck Lake Park, Fire Station number 1 on Livingston, Fire Station number 2 on North Duck Lake Road, Fire Station number 3 on Clyde Road, Hickory Ridge Park, the library, the police station, the town hall, and Veterans Park. And I'll read you some of the numbers that they charge. For instance, Veterans Park over here, $20 a week. It's pretty hard to get anybody to do a lawn for 20, but their prices are all very inexpensive. $16 to do the police station, $28 to mow the grass at the depot station, which is a pretty good size piece. So what I did do is, and I was informed by our attorney that I didn't follow the board policy, and I wasn't thinking about it from that perspective. I was thinking about what was the value added by having the Freedom Works do it. So my request is that the board, I don't know the right term there, Gary, bypass the board purchasing policy.
Well, because of the amount of the contracts, competitive bids were supposed to be obtained.
Correct.
Now, there is one exception under the policy for that. It certainly doesn't fit exactly, but I can read it to you. It says,
Sure.
Other contractual obligations or renewals provided services under the contract are at least equal to those specified in the prior contract and costs increase no more than 5% per year. If I understood your memo correctly, this company has been under a prior contract
Correct.
to do 2 of the properties.
Correct.
So you've got a prior contract, but what you don't satisfy literally is it's not exactly the same services. So the board could do a couple things. I think it could interpret this situation you presented as falling within exception 14 to the purchasing policy, or alternatively waive it, or third, I guess, ask the supervisor to get 2 more quotes and bring it back. But, it is a company that you've been dealing with, so that seemed to be the gist of that exception under the purchasing policy that you adopted last August.
Well, rather than pushing the limits and rubberizing the statement of item number 14 in the policy, I'd prefer to ask the board to waive the policy. In this case, because what it does for, it's a community-based group. These people really need to work, and they're not going to get it otherwise. And it's a value added for taxpayers. If you're going to pay somebody, it's not that we don't want somebody else that's in business to not have that opportunity, but this is a great opportunity to be a little bit more magnanimous than normal. So.
Yeah, I agree about the Freedom Works. I think what they do is wonderful. We don't have to rush into this because there's no grass to cut right now. I think just so that we could show our community how responsible we're being to get a couple more quotes so that we could show them that this is a bargain using Freedom Works.
What's the total value of the contract?
$16,000 over the 7 months. $16,380.
It's $2,340 a month.
So $585 a week to cover all those properties.
And I would agree with Mary. I think the responsible thing to do is put it out for bid. That's what our policy says. That's what we should do. And we like to follow the policy.
We didn't include the 59 median either.
Not in this.
Okay, so you'd rather keep that separate?
Yep.
Okay.
Why aren't we having them do that too?
Because that's paid for by the,
By that beautification, no, it's not.
no, it's paid for by the highway, the Metro Authority.
Yeah.
Gives us 10,000 a year to do maintenance in the right of
Right
ways.
away, yeah.
And who does that then, does the actual maintenance? We'll still have our person do that for you from the
No,
township?
actually, we hire that out.
Oh, okay.
That's why I asked, are they allowed to work on 59 or?
Freedom Works, you mean?
Yeah,
I would imagine their liabilities should cover, if they cover
Everything.
anything else, they cover that.
okay.
That ought to be included. You can
We can
section
separate
out
that
how
out.
much that is, because we have it based on the bid. Separated in the bid, so it's easy to separate the payment.
Well, we have options. The options are that you can follow board policy to the T, or you can waive the policy and move on and give Freedom Works the opportunity to take the job, or the board can request me to go out for other bids. So I think what we need to do is, I'm gonna make the motion to approve the Freedom Works bid and have the board waive the policy. Is there a support?
Support.
Okay, now we,
Well, discussion.
yeah,
I mean, I do support Freedom Works, that they do a lot of good things in the community.
Absolutely.
And I don't think the pricing, they're doing the activity center, annex, depot station, Duck Lake Park, fire station 1, 2, and 3, Hickory Park, library, police station, town hall, Veterans Park, for $585 a week.
Oh,
So
it's a lot of grass.
I would probably think that even if you got a couple bids, I don't know, it was gonna come close to that. I mean, do you think, Mary, that that's gonna make any sense for someone to pursue something like that, to do that?
Well, like I said, it was the policy, you
Yeah.
know, and why do we have these board policies and rules if we're not gonna follow any of them? There is no urgency to this, we don't have any grass to mow right now, we're not gonna for a while by the looks of the weather out there, so I don't see any reason why we can't put this out for bid and bring it back and do it the way we're supposed to do it.
Probably for the same reason that you have a planning board and don't follow their recommendations and zoning board.
They're already a supplier to us now, right? They're
Mhm.
already doing work, so are we expanding what they're doing, basically?
Basically, yeah,
Okay, so
a lot.
if we have an existing supplier and we're expanding the work they give, what would necessitate necessarily to go out for another bid?
Because it's a totally different work they're doing. They do the two parks right now, and what Rick is proposing is to do all of the maintenance for all of the mowing for every facility we have.
It's still grass cutting, right? I mean,
Of course it is.
okay.
I will repeat that I don't see any problem in just getting a couple bids, even if we just show to our people how responsible we're being and what a great bargain this is we're getting from Freedom Works.
Is it, how difficult would it be to get two bids?
not a problem. In fact, I'll withdraw the motion and make a motion to put it out to bid, and we'll see what we get for the next board
That
meeting.
requires a motion.
Huh?
I don't know if that requires a motion to just decide you're gonna go.
Well, there's a
ahead.
motion and a second.
You're withdrawing your
You're withdrawing
motion,
your motion, so.
and
Yeah.
your supporter is withdrawing his support, I assume.
Are you?
No, I'm not, but I will. I think we should just move ahead too, but
So
it's
then
okay.
a
I'll
motion.
withdraw my
So we need to give you authority to go out and get to it tomorrow?
No,
Okay.
no.
All right, okay, all right.
I guess my final comment on it is that it was discussed during the budget session. Doesn't mean it verifies it, but the whole process was discussed at that time and was made very clear why we were doing that and not hiring an additional employee. So, on that note, we'll get some more bids.
Gary's the one that pointed out to us, though, that we needed to make a motion to either bypass that or to get the bid. That's why we were even talking about it. Because it was
Right.
brought up by our attorney.
Yep,
Okay.
So is there a motion or not? It was withdrawn.
withdraw.
Okay.
All right, next item, let's try that Freedom Works thing again. No. Highland Township Activity Center and Transportation Severe Weather Policy. As we've seen this past week or so here, the schools have closed down a couple of different times when it seemed really bizarre to a lot of people. Why did schools shut down and not deliver the kids when the weather didn't seem to be so bad during those periods? Well, what happens is we have policy that affects employees and the use of facilities, and also affects our transportation system. So what we wanted to do was to readdress that, because we had no reason to close our facilities when the school decided to do what they did. And what it did is it put a lot of people who are used to coming to our activity center, made it unable for them to be able to enjoy their day, which would have been fine under those conditions. And it also made it so the bus program kind of got into a clinker, because we have people that do dialysis and people at work that we get the transportation is important for. So the determination was made to look at changing the severe weather policy. So what you have in the memorandum in front of you is there's a couple of components to it. The first one is, and I'll read this change to you. Recommended change. Effective February 15th, 2018, the policy for severe weather in Section 4 of the Employee Handbook also includes the Highland Activity Center employees and the Highland Transportation employees. All employees are required to report for work unless otherwise notified. Office work may be assigned if usual duties are postponed or canceled. So what would happen is we'd have employees that could show up for work, but because of the way the policy reads, they would get the day off with pay. And so it's a way to make things, you might as well be there and you can work. So if the activity center itself is closed, then that's a different story. But so the next part is, if extreme weather conditions require closing of the buildings to the public, you will be notified by management if you are not expected to report to work. Highland Township and Activity Center employees are eligible for pay in proportion to the number of hours they normally are scheduled to work that day, and Highland Transportation employees are eligible to 4 hours of pay if scheduled to work that day, if notified to not report to work. So there'll be two motions involved here.
Question.
I have a question.
Yes. Oh.
Go ahead.
Why are you saying about Huron Valley closing schools? Is our
Because
contingent on that? I don't get
Our
the
current
connection.
policy is contingent on the schools being closed. Because if the buses don't run, then we won't be open. So there's the assumption that, that
Why?
because the school closes, we can't. Well, what's happened is the school called off
Monday.
when it was like sunny out.
Well,
The back roads.
Yeah, that's a judgment call.
But I'm the same question I had. Why are we locked into?
Yeah.
And that's why we're
That's what
changing
we're
it.
fixing.
That's why we're-
I'm just asking, I guess my question,
Yes.
why were we locked in? That's my question. I'm just
Because it
curious.
was something we just kind of looked at the policy and said, that seems like it makes sense.
Let somebody
but
else make the decision.
then it didn't
Okay.
make sense, so it was kind of it's kind of letting the school deal with
Well,
part of
and
it.
for
but-
school, it's a no-win situation for them.
Right.
Whether they close or they leave it open.
I want to go on record, I like that.
But no, you
Well,
can't
and this-
please everybody on
And this
that.
clarifies what all the employees.
Okay.
Right. And
What's inspected out of,
Yes.
expected.
I have no complaints about this. I was just curious why we were locked, same thing, why we were locked. I
It's
guess
just
I've
the way
come
the
from
policy
the
was
school
written.
background of Mary Pat and I, why we were locked in. So, sounds like my chiropractor.
I think it was
true.
an easy for the seniors especially. It's like if the schools were closed, you didn't
Yeah,
get
they
Meals on
know.
Wheels, and you stay
Okay.
home. So I think it was just an easy.
Okay.
So the final say is the supervisor or management, if the supervisor's not there, makes the final call on whether the operation goes forward or whether it closes down. And then if it is shut down, the supervisor also makes the decision who shows up.
So
as
seniors have to
employees.
walk to the main roads to catch the bus then? Is that how it works?
Right.
And then how
Bring your
will-
own shovel.
Since before the seniors would, pay attention to the posting on the TVs and everything about school closing, now how will they get the information whether it's closed or not?
They still, what they do is they'll call in, they usually call in to verify for themselves that they have an appointment. If we're
There
not
won't be
going
any
to, then
wait
we call them. So,
Okay.
we do have
Yeah, for
communication with them.
transportation, definitely.
Okay.
And
Just wondered how
transportation
they'd
does a
be
great job
notified.
of keeping everybody posted on what's going on that, so.
Okay, thank you.
So we have two motions to consider.
Right, so you'll see on the page there, at the top of the page, there's one motion, there's a second motion that
I
follows.
move to approve the motion, effective February 15, 2018, the policy for severe weather in section 4 of the employee handbook to include the Highland Activity Center employees and the Highland Transportation employees, with the added verbiage inserted in italics below.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported, vote please.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, another motion, we've got, down to the bottom of the page, you'll see an additional motion there.
I would move to approve effective February 15th, 2018, the policy for the Community Transportation Program, CTP guidelines, and the CTP operating procedures, page 2, to the changed verbiage inserted in italics below.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported, vote please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, the next item, Transportation Department Service Animal Policy. I don't know how many people saw in the news the woman that wanted to take her peacock on the airplane.
Yes.
Figure out what this was
Yes,
called.
it was great.
It's like, what?
So there appears to be this thing where people believe that they need to be able to carry their animals with them as emotional support animals.
Service.
And so
My peacock.
apparently it's become an issue with the senior transportation. People want to carry their dogs and things, and the dogs, eliminate on the bus and whatever. So we've decided we probably, in light of the peacock issue, we don't need any snakes or any other crazy animals to go along as emotional support animals. So what we've got is a request for change to the transportation operating procedures. And the changes, so I'll read what Kim has said here. Due to a recent request, we must include a clause in the transportation program guide and rules and regulations addressing companion pets. We cannot deny service animals, but we must deny companion pets. Requesting the following excerpt taken directly from the ADA handbook be the directive transportation uses to address this issue. So this is the statement that the ADA uses. Emotional support animals, comfort animals, and therapy dogs are not service animals under the Title II and Title III of ADA. Other species of animals, whether wild or domestic, trained or untrained, are not considered service animals either. A doctor's letter does not turn an animal into a service animal. So she'd like to have that added to it, and then also in the manual, the definition of a service animal. So that consists of 3 questions. Question 1, what is a service animal? Under ADA, a service animal is defined as a dog that has been individually trained to do work or perform tasks for an individual with a disability. The task or tasks performed by the dog must be directly related to the person's disability. Question 2, what does do work or perform tasks mean? The dog must be trained to take a specific action when needed to assist a person with disability. For example, a person with diabetes may have a dog that is trained to alert him when his blood sugar reaches high or low levels. A person with depression may have a dog that is trained to remind her to take her medication. Or a person who has epilepsy may have a dog that is trained to detect the onset of a seizure and help the person remain safe during the seizure. And then question 3, are emotional support, therapy, comfort, or companion animals considered service animals under the ADA? Answer to that, no. These terms are used to describe animals that provide comfort just by being with the person. Because they have not been trained to perform a specific job or task, they do not qualify as service animals under the ADA. So I think in this case, what we probably need to do is make a motion that accepts,
The request
To
to
add this
change.
language to their guidelines.
right, and that language starts with emotional support animals and comfort animals.
And good for Kim for being on top of this.
So anyone want to make a motion on that?
I would move to approve the community transportation program and adding to the handbook, is that what we're doing, the ADA handbook? The emotional support animals, that paragraph, and then on down, as presented by Kim, or as you read,
Right, it's operating guidelines.
operating guidelines.
So to modify
Support.
them to include the information that's
Yeah.
contained in this document. Okay.
Is that good?
Yeah,
All right,
I'm good with that. I have a question.
we'll need a support on that.
I supported.
Okay, and your question?
A therapy animal. Therapy? So a therapy animal, are they like licensed? Do they have some kind of paperwork that shows what their training is?
Service animal.
I'm asking for dog licenses, because we run into the same thing with dog licenses. If you have a therapy animal that's trained to help someone with some kind of a medical disability, you get a free license. But people
Okay.
have asked us about we're dealing with the same thing.
So what you have to refer to is the ADA definition,
And just ask them.
and service animal is the,
Service
Proper
animal,
term.
not therapy.
not therapy.
Okay.
Judy, is that a requirement from the state dog licensing statute? Is that your understanding?
We sell licenses for Oakland County, and they're free if they're service animals. But it's like, who defines it? We've ran into it a couple times, because we have had somebody come in with a medical thing from their doctor that says, this is my companion animal. And for $7.50, it was just like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna stand here and argue with you all day.
But it turned out to be our husband.
It just so happens that companion animal was one of the ones in question, so.
I'm
You
sure
would like
it is.
to think that if it's coming from the county, that they're using the criteria that Kim identified under the ADA.
Okay.
But it may be worth a look-see to make sure,
Okay.
because in the scenario you outlined, someone gets one of these licenses with no charge because of that standard, and then they show up at the bus, and you have an issue. And
Exactly,
it's
and
best to
and
avoid
people
that
play
issue
the
in
game.
advance.
Yeah, we need to be
Well,
consistent.
yeah, and I guess what's happens is you infer that the license now is a license to be a comfort animal, because,
Service animal,
Right.
yeah.
all right, so, moved and supported, discussed, and vote please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Interesting.
Okay, next one, we've only had one individual for, activity security position for a while. I think there's, we've had a couple people with age and other things have occurred, and, Heidi's requested that we, recommend that we hire Jean Lund to fill a part-time activity center security position. So I'm gonna recommend that we hire, as a motion, Jean Lund to fill a part-time activity center security position. This position is for evenings and weekends as needed based on rentals. The pay rate will be $9.25 per hour. The start date will be February 15th, 2018.
Support.
Moved and supported?
Question?
Yes.
Just wondered, when they work for the activity center in this position, is it the same guidelines as far as background screening and all those things as all the other employees? Okay, just wanted to be sure. Thank you.
is there any minimum hours for that person, or is it tied into a rental, or?
It's the rentals.
We went through this with,
Days.
our bookkeeper, because this is kind of stuff that comes up, and there's not that many hours that puts them in beyond the, they're not,
So we're not guaranteeing-
contract
we're not
employees. You
guaranteeing
cannot
anything.
use them as contract employees, so they are employees. And that's the reason that it's worded that way, so
So he could come in for 2 hours, and be done.
be done for weeks, or it could be come back days, so. It's not a real high volume job, and, in the past, they rarely exceeded the 600 $50
It's on call, more or less.
amount for, you know, a
1099.
1099, so, but because of the legal component of it, it was recommended that we
It's employee.
employ them as opposed to try and do it through that process, because you don't have any control over whether it's working for anybody else, so.
Okay.
All right, so a vote, please.
All right, Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, the next one, Wheel In. The Wheel In is planning on doing some activities for St. Patrick's Day. And St. Patrick's Day is on a Saturday. So what they did is they went to the Planning Commission and went through the process to get their permits to, they wanted to put a tent outside behind their building and have music and food and that type of thing, kind of expand the event. Went to the Planning Commission, they reviewed the application. The application was approved, subject to the board approving approval of a noise nuisance exemption permit and submission of letters of permission from neighbor businesses for parking. So basically what we're looking at is right now, though, I think the numbers are they have to shut the music down at 9 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
And they're asking for the opportunity to be able to, you know, their outdoor activities may be conducted until 2 a.m. as part of the Planning Commission issued temporary land use permit, which was also subject to the state of Michigan approval, which they got to get all our approvals first before they really get to move on too far. But the band may only play during those hours that the board may authorize unless the noise is confined to the property. So essentially, we are being asked to give them an opportunity to play to X time. And so we need to make a decision on what time we feel we want them to be able to play to. At any point in time, the nuisance clause or ordinance applies, and if somebody in the neighborhood should complain, then the sheriff has the right to shut it down. So is there any comments you'd like to make on that, Lieutenant Snyder?
No, I think what this is saying is you're gonna give them an exemption to that ordinance.
Right.
Are you guys gonna specify a specific time?
Yes, that's the request. Right now, it's
the only issue I see with this location is there is a residential area behind it, and that's where we're gonna get the complaints. As far as other businesses, it's just businesses around there, so I don't really foresee a problem. It's hard for me to say, it depends on what kind of complaints we get. But if you're willing to give him an exemption on this ordinance, and if he's here in the audience, if he's willing, if we do get complaints, if you're willing to work with us.
Absolutely.
We're here to make it all work for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
What's your proposal?
Well, the tent's going to be enclosed. I'm not sure. I mean, the walls of the tent probably are not going to have that much hindrance on the amount of noise. But the proposal, I'd like to go as late as the township would let me. I figure 11 would be kind of the standard. If there was an exemption to be made, that probably would be what I'd hope to push it to. I'd love if you guys said 2, but obviously I understand. I want to be courteous to the subdivision behind my bars. So
you could invite the neighbors.
Right. I was going to actually give them all something in the mailbox or something.
Reindeer. That's a good idea.
But I actually know the household right behind my bar, and then obviously there's Poplar Street, and then the other homes I need to take into consideration. But I'm all ears if you hear complaints. I have no problem telling the band to close out early.
This is not something that's really ever been done before in Highland, I know of.
No.
Other than our neighbors here know some things that I know of as well that went on without permission.
But I'm doing the right thing being here.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone here from the neighborhood behind the wheel bar?
So anyways, we appreciate that you have gone through the process to do that, because it does make people aware. The issue I was speaking of was pretty abusive and pretty excessive, so you want to be very careful.
Sure. And if it makes any difference, it's not going to be a rock band, it's a country band. There might not even be a drummer, so it might be kind of a more subtle acoustic plugged into electric, but it's not going to be heavy metal.
And I'm under the impression that it's going to be facing south towards your building.
The band, as it's planned right now, would be facing east. So
Okay.
it would not be facing towards.
Okay, so it'll be facing the parking lot and the building next door.
Correct. Correct.
All right, well, at least not blasting into the neighborhood.
Right.
So.
And part of the process for this to go to the planning commission was all the people within 300 feet were notified, right? think.
The businesses for the parking, as to get a letter of them acknowledging that it's okay to use their lot, which I will have by Monday.
Okay, but I mean, wouldn't the residents, do you know, Mary, if the residents would have been notified
think
within
so.
300 feet? Okay, no,
No, for a tent, they wouldn't, you know,
okay. Not for special.
if that's what the
Okay.
planning commission approved.
They approved the temporary outdoor promotional event.
So
Right,
you've
so-
talked to some of the residents, or you plan on talking to some of the residents?
Well, I actually pay dues to the association, and I could talk to the president, maybe if they have a meeting towards the end of the month or something.
Maybe
I could-
proactive to
Or
go
like
there
an
and
email
say, hey,
blast,
just wanna let you
something
guys know
like
we're gonna
that.
be doing
Yeah.
this.
Just so they know.
Sure.
And give them a free corned beef and cabbage.
I could always, I could be
Personally, I'm
arranged.
comfortable with the 11th. If you're ready for a
You
motion.
wanna make a motion on that?
I would move to approve the temporary exemption under section 12.6 for the wheel-in request on March 17th for the band to play until 11 o'clock. Gary?
Support?
Okay, moved and supported.
Good?
Did our discussion beforehand, but, vote please.
I vote yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 And yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good luck, and thank you for taking that, going through that process. It's pretty involved.
yeah, are you having music inside and in the tent?
And outside, yes.
Okay.
Can I make a comment to, who was at the planning commission meeting? He had everything. I mean, didn't you even have the fire department, or was it the police you have? I mean, you
Oh,
had
yeah,
certificates of everything, certificates of insurance. I mean, he
That's
provided
awesome.
everything to us. The only question we had was about the parking, and you had already had that figured out, and you're gonna bring that written thing in.
Correct.
So we were very
Thank
pleased
you.
with how prepared you were for that.
What about the application for 12-year-olds to drink?
Great.
Can't do much about that one.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yes,
Appreciate it.
thank you, guys.
What do we have here?
H.
The next item, we're tossing over to Chief Chapman.
There we go.
Well, last year we purchased a new fire truck. This year we allocated a certain amount of money to outfit that truck. We're at the point of purchasing stuff with longer lead times. One of the items tonight is for communication equipment. We're requesting for one mobile to be mounted inside the truck and then 2 portables to also be mounted inside the truck for responses and communication purposes. The total for all 3 items is $12,706.68. Synergy Products is the only supplier of Harris, which is what the county uses for communication. Harris radio system, so they were our only choice for bids.
Ken, do you have any kind of a countywide bid system, though, that they comply with, like consortium or something for
They are
that?
the only agency in the state of Michigan approved to be a vendor for Harris.
And do they agree to any terms or anything, or they don't have to, because they're the only one? They don't have to, okay.
We're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place when it comes to radios.
Okay.
These funds would come from the account 402-290-000-942-000, which is for the new equipment for the vehicle.
I would move to approve the purchase of communication equipment from Synergy Wireless Products not to exceed $13,000? Or do you want me to put an exact amount in here? Totaling $12,706.68 from the, as budgeted under the account number referenced in Chief Chapman's memo.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported. Any discussion? All right, vote please.
Mr. Salvia?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, next item. Mr. Chapman.
Again, this is along the same lines with long lead times for delivery for the equipment. Attached is a quote for the Hearst hydraulic Jaws of Life. Everybody knows about Jaws of Life from TV. These are actually newer equipment. They have basically battery operated, much like a drill. But they are capable of cutting the high strength steels that are in almost every vehicle manufactured nowadays. They offer a extremely quicker deployment. Last year we did evaluations on all the manufacturers out there. Hearst, gosh, I can't remember the other names now, but Hearst was the manufacturer we chose. And again, this is the only vendor in the state of Michigan that sells Hearst tools. Attached in the letter is the sole, or it's called the sole provider letter or notification. This is for $28,500. It will purchase the Jaws of Life, the high strength steel cutting cutters, as well as a ram and the ancillary equipment. One nice thing about this equipment is if we do have a battery failure or we're using it for a long time period and the battery dies, we have the ability to plug the device into an actual regular electrical line and it'll still operate. This would also come from the 402 capital budget that was identified earlier.
Okay, just so a little bit more involved in it. The older Jaws of Life were hydraulically operated. They required hoses that ran back to a gasoline-powered hydraulic pump, which a lot of times leaked and the hoses would get worn out and you have to drag the hoses around to get to it. These are completely portable.
Completely portable. Also, the equipment that we currently use is 20+ years old. When we purchased this equipment, high-strength steel was just emerging into the vehicle manufacturing field. And the equipment just wasn't designed to, or isn't capable of performing under those conditions. The stuff that we've identified after probably 4 months of looking at different tools, this will meet our needs. And
another element, got to witness some of this equipment in operation. If you were to do a time test with the old Jaws of Life, you could probably do 3 to 4 cuts with this new stuff in the same time it would take to do one. And it might even have been more depending on where you're at. Plus the flexibility allows you to get into
flexibility, the weight, no drag or anything pulling up the hoses.
And time is of the essence, so.
Golden hour.
All right, so, somebody want to?
I would move to approve purchase of hydraulic extrication equipment from Apollo for the equipment described, not to exceed $28,500 from the budgeted account number referenced in Chief Chapman's memo.
Support?
Okay, moved and supported. Vote please.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, the next item relates to awarding the bid for tree removal and trimming at Highland cemeteries. We had 11 companies come out and give us quotes, and they range from $20,220 to a high of $93,495. It took quite a bit of time. If you look at this second sheet we passed out here, what I did is I went through every single quote and looked for detail to verify that I felt that they would be comfortable with the accomplishment. It doesn't mean the individuals couldn't do it, but when you look at a range of 93,000, I'll give you a read off of all of them. So the lowest was 20,220, 21,120, 28,400, 28,650, 32,050, 35,300, 48,900, 71,500, 82,500, $85,002, $93,495. So you can see there's a huge range there. So the other thing that I did is I went through and looked at, like I said, detail of the quotes. And what I came up with was the most detailed quote actually was Lynn's Tree Service at $82,500. But the most clear quote, and detailed as well, I also added up when they said they were going to cut down trees. How many trees did they say they were going to cut down? How many? And we had marked all the trees. So each one of the contractors was required to go out, look at the job, come back with a quote. We didn't specify that you had to say anything in your quotation, but it's up to the individual to do that. So what we had to do is go by those elements. So what I found was Dawson Tree Service, which is the recommended contractor at $28,400. If you look at the bid, it was a little bit higher, but he had discounts for doing the whole project, which brought it down to $28,400. He came highly recommended by nearby communities. The next one at $28,650 had little to no detail, no tree counts, pretty hard to, it was just numbers. Michigan Property Network, and back to Dawson's, they're a local contractor out of White Lake. Michigan Property Network, local contractor, detailed documentation, also highly recommended by nearby communities. He was $32,050. So when you look at the range of 20 to 35,000, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 11. The other ones jump awful high. Now, I know of Dawson's Tree Service. I know of Michigan Property Network. I've seen their work. I know they can handle it. I know they have the machinery. When they say they can do it for $28,400, I think it's kind of hard to not go that direction. Now, like I said, I do see one of our contractors in the back of the room who was actually the lowest bidder. But when I looked at those documents, that was the rationale that I used. It's nothing against the individuals. It's based on information I'd received when I looked into the background of the different companies. So my proposal is that we select Dawson Tree Service as the bid winner at $28,400.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported.
I have a question, I'm just going back, trying to find your memo, the original memos.
I tell you what page it is on, but I can't figure it out.
That's why I added the clarification document.
Okay, because, you know, to automatically eliminate the low bids and the high bids really isn't,
I didn't, that's why I added the,
okay.
actually Gary gave me a call and said, that doesn't sound right, and when I was writing the memo, I was thinking of what I had done with this document, so that's why he asked me to write this addendum, so that it explained better how I had, came about the two lowest and the two highest. The two highest were just off the chart.
Sometimes people.
But ironically,
they don't want the job, but they're submit a bid. So if they get the job,
it makes it very difficult to understand what's real in the tree business.
Rick, is this open for comment?
I'll let you comment. Identify yourself.
My name is Mark Perry with Precision Tree, and my bid was the lowest of the bunch. The reason for lack of detail in my bid was simply that I was going exactly on the marked items at both cemeteries and including fence clearing of the perimeter as described. And so my bid basically described that I would do all the work exactly according to the ITB. And so I was going from the description in the bid, as it's all described by your hard work with marking and inventorying the trees. It didn't seem to me that more detail was involved other than that I would comply with all the features that were published in the ITB. And I've had several hours of going through both cemeteries and identifying all the work, the scope of it, the stump grinding, the cleanup, and my bid is obviously the lowest. One thing I will point out, and it was in the ITB, was that it was one of the primary requirements that any of the trees that were to be pruned would be pruned in a spurless technique. Now, if you have researched our companies or read reviews about us, this is part and parcel of what we do day in and day out. Part of our reputation is spurless climbing, which is nothing more than industry standard. The point I'm making is that we're one of the few people that actually do this day in and day out in our industry.
Well, I appreciate your comments. I'm not. It was a very difficult process to go through, and most of the majority of them gave documentation that was more clear, about what they would include, but it didn't kind of match up. I will say that it's the first time that we've gone out and done anything like this, so in the future you learn stuff as you go along, and we're going to have more work that we need done in our parks. So the next round of things that we do, when we put out a request for bid, then I do hope that you will come and bid again, and we'll make sure that we do a stellar job on our end of defining the work. I won't say we did a stellar job. We did what we thought we were supposed to do. We used a process that we got from the village or from Milford Township for their cemetery. And after having 11 contractors look at it and getting all these variables, it's like we got to be next level. We need to pay attention to that. So I do appreciate your comments, and we will make sure that in the future that we will.
Lastly, I wanted to just say we are local. We're just adjacent in Rose Township, and we have a history of working for other local townships: Orchard Lake, Rose Township, Tyrone Township. So I have worked for a lot of municipalities in the past, and we have all the similar equipment to all these other companies. So we're perfectly capable of doing the work, and our bid is clearly the lowest among all of them. And I looked at the work very closely.
So,
Mr. Supervisor, if the hesitation was they didn't do the tree count, and you marked all the trees, and he says he's gonna do them all, I don't agree with paying $8,000 more for the job because they didn't put that in their bid. He's very clear that that was part of his consideration, and he will do them all. So I think, I'm not in favor of awarding a bid for $8,000 more on that basis when it's made clear to us that that will be taken care of.
Was there a list of referrals submitted with your proposal?
no.
Was it asked for?
Well, I don't know. I would hope that people would submit letters of recommendation from other sources. is that requested?
Well, it's a decision that I made based on the knowledge that I had, the information I had available to me, and I also have to, you know, I'm nervous that on the 28,000, I don't know how you can do that much work for 20,000, much less 28. And to be honest with you, when I originally looked at it, I thought for sure this would be a $50,000 to $100,000 job based on the counts of trees and the amount of work involved. And especially when you're working around gravestones, you can't drive on top of grades, which your technique works. I don't disagree with that. You know, the spikeless climbing, but
Our plan would be to use a lift to set up a lift on the roadways to access any trees that we can reach using a lift, and as well as setting up a truck mounted crane to eliminate the issue of having to plywood out and to force equipment in between gravestones. So very, very little of any heavy equipment will be off of the roadway in my plan.
okay, well, you can't put any heavy equipment off the roadway because you'll cave in a sarcophagus.
I don't see it, there's no recommendation here on Dawson's, though, they didn't supply those either, so.
No, I called on them, so.
Okay, and I think that I like the fact that Precision Tree and Shrub did have a representative here tonight to answer our questions about it too. I'm kind of leaning towards that is the lowest bid too, especially since he came and kind of represented himself and answered our questions. I think that it might be worth giving it a shot and saving the township some money. I'll throw it out there and then you can either bid up or down, or did you already make a motion?
There's a motion.
There is a motion out there already? Oh, okay.
Well, the board has that opportunity, I mean, so.
Have you had any discussions with any of the lower range folks at all? I mean, is it the first time you've talked to the Precision gentleman, or?
He'd been in my office at one time and asked questions about what we're doing out there.
Let me make an assumption. If you would have targeted, or if the board would target 3 or 4 or 5 of these, would it be worth a walkthrough with the gentleman at some point in time to walk through and make sure that he's comfortable with everything he's doing? I mean, in fairness to both to you and the board, that a walkthrough is relevant.
You know, I used what I could use for my decision making, and that's what I did. I'm not saying that I'm trying to spend more money. I just there's a comfort level involved. Even at 28,400, looking at the amount of work is nerve wracking, to say the least. To say how's it going to get done, but I know that Dawson will perform, and I know that a couple of the other ones in there will perform, but it's at that price range. So there's a motion, there's a support, right? Do we have support on that?
Yes.
And so what we need to do is we need to make that decision based on a vote.
Can you repeat the motion then, what we're voting on?
To accept Dawson Tree Service as the contractor to do the clearing for the cemeteries. Tree trimming and clearing.
Did you talk with Dawson personally?
I have, yes.
Okay. And the other two, Arbor Master or Precision?
Arbor Master, I got no response out of.
Okay.
The other ones, their price range was up there, so.
No, I understand that. I would not look at anything.
So you did call Dawson and ask them questions about their bid? You're
Yeah,
saying you talked to
well,
them?
in their bid, if you look at their bid, it's detailed.
I
It's all
understand, but
good.
what I'm saying, did you call Precision and ask him about his also?
No, we had conversations beforehand.
We talked prior to, I wanted to nail down the details of your markings and what you expected. When you explained it to me in your office, I had a pretty good, clear idea what we were gonna accomplish. And I looked at the work at both cemeteries with the mind of pricing it tight for the township, pricing it tight as we do in the wintertime. Prices do change in our business from season to season, from time of year to time of year. It's not unusual. I would encourage you to call local townships, Tyrone, Rose Township, City of Orchard Lake. We work for them all, and they've all used us on repeated occasions.
Well, Gary, let me ask you a question. What do we have in there, the invitation to bid about any bonding or?
You have insurance to cover any damage
Liability
to
insurance is
gravestones and all that?
included.
We have insurance that's compliant with the ITB.
So
And
that's submitted.
I submitted a copy of our insurance with the bid.
Right.
Yeah.
Required proof of insurance in the amount of $1 million.
And that includes, both bids include the same thing, right?
Yep. So what you have, the board has an opportunity to make a decision, which leaves room for a new motion should.
When would envision this work to start?
Right away.
Immediately,
Yes, sir.
time frame. I don't recall on the completion date.
3 to 4 weeks, most, weather permitting.
All right,
We are under the restriction that we have to complete oak pruning by April 1st.
That's part of the
all right, so
proposal.
what we should do is address the motion and vote.
What's the motion?
Because we
The
can't-
motion is for
we cannot
Dawson
delay
Tree
this to
Service.
another meeting.
It's already been.
No, this needs to,
We
this
wanna
needs
get
to
it
be,
done.
happen, so, so
Or
let's,
you can withdraw your motion.
what's that?
I said, or you can withdraw your motion.
Yeah, I can withdraw the motion.
Did I support? I'm good
So
with
I think and I'll say that because of the fact that you did show up, I appreciate it very much. The thing I wanna make sure is that the job gets completed and we don't have any stone disasters and so on and so forth. And it's not that I don't trust you to do that. I think our conversations before, when you came in asking questions were clear that you know your business. So,
Could we do something such that we could recommend precision, subject to a walkthrough of the cemetery by you? And if you're not pleased, that the bid goes Dawson? Could we do something like that?
I think what Precision is saying is that he agrees to what we had stated in the invitation to bid was that we mark trees, so.
Could I add or ask this question? The ITB was pretty darn good, but not perfect. A walkthrough would be very, very important. The small part that I found a little bit squishy was clearance along the fence line. I'd like to clarify that with you, what you expect to see on completion. That, because when I came back in and I asked you how much was expected along fence line.
I think the conversation on that is that you wouldn't remove anything from the fence itself because of damage and danger from the chain link. And that you would chop anything off at the height of the fence and anything that you could get off at ground level that was next to the fence. Of course, you can't go to the other side of the fence because that's private property. So I think your answer on that was that yes, you would do it too. And I think the other thing we talked about was that we took the west fence out of the conversation because of the difficulty where the mess is way in the back.
This would be the Milford.
The Milford Road one, the mess that's all in the back that Diane talked about in her thing.
You're saying the northwest corner.
The northwest corner and the west fence line would be very difficult because of the elevation change and things like that. But, I mean, you're welcome to you comment on that, if that's part of what you're talking about, then,
The west fence didn't have a lot of issues.
okay,
I think we were also talking about pruning encroaching material that originates from the other property. So it encroaches to a certain
Right.
degree. But typically when something grows through the fence, you cut it at the top rail of the fence. Because the only other thing to do is tear out the fence to get it out.
Right.
So,
so I think we're in agreement that you see the same thing that I was talking about, so I don't have an issue with that personally.
We could ask him to agree to match the tree counts that we got in the specified bids as a fail-safe to make sure that we are talking about the same number of trees.
yes.
So,
I think,
in one of the bids.
what was your name again, first name?
Mark Perry.
Mark? I think that Mark has offered information that is probably adequate. We did have, like I said, a company called Lynn's Tree Service that was $82,000. Went through and made a map. It's a little bit difficult to read, but I think it's pretty accurate. We can give you a copy of that map, and then we'll, if you.
I would be willing to work from that. I can't imagine any reason that he would put items on there that were not marked.
Right.
Right.
And I'm also presuming that no additional trees have been marked since we first did our walkthrough, and you haven't gone back and there's no additional trees marked since you originally did it. Right?
Trust me, we haven't been out there.
No, we have not been out there.
It's been cold.
Yeah, I can't get her out of her.
Diane might have been out there.
So, I guess I made a motion, right?
But you withdrew it.
All right, so I would like to make the motion to select a precision tree and shrub for the sum of $20,220.
Support?
Not to exceed.
I'm gonna be a little different on this one. There was a tree that was marked, but I know nobody caught it because I think somebody pulled the tag off it. In the very front of the cemetery, it's a huge old oak. And I know nobody caught it, so it had to have been pulled off prior to the investigation, and that we would allocate the opportunity for him to give us a price in addition to for that tree, and it's big. So it's not something that $100 is gonna have any effect on, so.
Is this a removal or pruning, sir?
It's a removal, because it's an oak that's cored out, it's rotten.
Is that the one supposed to tie the old ribbon on?
Well, why don't we just get a separate price for that? Like
Well, that's what I'm saying,
small,
we'll have
done.
him, instead of putting a price not to exceed, we'll negotiate any additional,
That's what I said, just
work.
walk through.
Does that sound good?
I appreciate that, yeah.
As a part of the motion, we will negotiate any additional trees or shrubs that we find, trees to remove. Right, so
Mary Pat supported.
Mary Pat supported, so, vote please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Yes,
Thank you for coming.
thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you very much for coming.
Importance of showing up.
You have gotta be a Superman on this, because I'm still trying to figure out how you're gonna do it.
Honestly,
He's in the
at
business.
opening the bid, I couldn't understand how everybody else produced these wild figures.
Well, the nineties
Still
were like, what?
Well, as I said earlier, sometimes people don't want the job, so they're gonna bid it.
Nuts.
Well, what you're gonna be doing for us is something that's been sorely needed, and we'll appreciate
It's gonna be awesome.
the end results, and I'll be watching you like a hawk.
I appreciate
And
that.
as will Diane.
Look forward to a walkthrough. We did find a couple additional trees at the
West Highland.
West Highland Cemetery that were not marked, that we thought should be addressed, and I'd like to show you those. It's
Yeah, there was one that actually we didn't mark, and the top fell out of it after we had left and broke a stone, so that one we had removed because it was dangerous, but So there's always that possibility. So that's why what we'll have to do is we'll negotiate any additional stuff. And it may be things that if we you draw it to my attention when you're up in the air where you can see inside something, that might require some additional things. So we appreciate that you are actually going to save us a tremendous amount of money. And I surely hope that you're successful at this, and I'm trusting that that'll happen. So thank you very much.
My goal too, sir.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in. That
Thank
made
you, Mark.
a huge difference. I appreciate it. All right, cool. Now we got a little bit more money to spend.
That's right, we can put it on the fence.
Yay.
All right, where are we now?
Okay,
Okay. A while back, we had, back in the earlier 20s, we had a company do our policy manual, and we've had instance after instance where it doesn't meet the things that we really need to look at, and so we've had our attorneys look at them, make recommendations for changes. We made some changes tonight to address some stuff. So one of the things that I did is because of conversations with our attorney over the previous documents that we had sent to them a few years ago, they said, you need to have a review of this. So I asked our attorneys to give us a quote and a recommendation on what they could do. So what I'd like to do is give the opportunity to our attorneys to review all of our personnel policy manual and come back with recommendations. The estimate for the review and providing written recommendations would involve approximately 20 hours of attorney time, which at regular $145 an hour billing rate would be $2,900. The actual hours of the project could be more or less, with final cost depending on the number of drafts and meetings that might be needed to arrive at final documents the board was comfortable with adopting. So I think that it's a appropriate thing to do, and somebody like to make a motion to approve that?
I have a question.
Sure.
And I should have asked this before, but were you planning to spend a lot of time going through the fire department sort of Lexipol part, or are you focusing more on the employee handbook part, or?
The part of the fire department ordinance that deals with personnel.
Okay.
Not Lexipol.
Not the Lexipol part.
No. So I'm looking to see if I have it in my letter here.
It's in there, yeah.
It's a division of chapter 9, I think.
Okay.
At any rate, we came across some provisions of that
Article 5
last
of
fall.
Chapter 9, yep.
Which we saw the net effects of not too long ago.
Yes, we did.
So
I would move to approve JRSJ right here.
yeah, right at the bottom.
I would move to authorize the township attorneys to proceed with the recommended review and recommendations on the township's personnel policy and fire department personnel provisions in Article 5 of Chapter 9 of the Ordinance Code.
Support.
Okay,
I
move
knew
it.
it was in there.
Should I put a not to exceed in there? For I mean, we can't really make it approximately $2,900.
No, but you can put not to exceed.
And then what if it ends up,
But it says more or less.
right,
then we'd
They
have
are attorneys.
He's the one that suggested it earlier.
I always put less in. You can put whatever budget you want on it. We will,
I think the scenario is that we need to get started, and at a point where it looks like it might exceed,
Agreed.
then we can come back and authorize
Right.
additional.
Okay.
This actually falls under less than the purchasing policy anyways.
it's professional service. I mean,
Yep.
Rick was the one that wanted to bring it to the board. I mean,
I think it's a good idea.
So, and so I think we should be good with the,
So we need support.
Joe supported it.
Jill is supported,
I'll
so, vote please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, the next one is item
Budget amendments L.
L, budget amendments.
When you put an M in, oh no, sorry. Yep. Never mind.
Um,
It's not getting over there.
One of you accounting specialists like to discuss that part, or just make the motion to approve?
Are there any questions on this?
Motion first.
I would move to approve the budget amendment as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any questions?
No.
Our superior bookkeeper does a great job of keeping track of stuff, so,
And the explanations on the bottom.
Right, that was.
Right.
because I know she looks at this. Amy, you do a great job. So, vote please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, next item is,
And
the added item M. As you know, we're supposed to, we came up with this policy, I think this is your idea, and this one came from school, Mary Pat.
Oh, okay.
So, Kim Weiner from Transportation, found a grant for $96,145 with no match, which would be used for, it's a tri-county grant for projects in human services, high impact grants to reach underserved populations, highlight current needs, and raise profile of deserving but less known organizations, and provided for new or expanded programs and projects. So we're in the process of having some discussions with Walled Lake. We got a call from Walled Lake. And they're an opt-in, which means that they have a millage that they charge for their buses, the SMART program. And they had received feedback from some of the other people in the SMART program that said that our director was doing a phenomenal job, and so their chief financial officer over there called us up and said, would you please consider taking over their program? Meaning that they have 2 buses, they have a millage to apply to it, and they're just looking for somebody that could do the direction. So what that does is it opens up the opportunity to do something we were talking about earlier, and that was working with other communities. The concept was to, what I'll be doing, and probably for the next board meeting, is putting together a proposal that will go to their board as well as our board to discuss the proposed program and how it would function if we did it, and the resources that would come from it. Their resources are somewhere in the $150,000 a year for their 2 buses, and they really are extremely underutilized, so it opens up some pretty good doors to build a system for this part of the local areas to be able to handle senior. And the other thing they can do is they can pick up anybody. So that would be for their community and a little bit around it. So anyways, this ties into something like that, so that it would open up doors for when you're doing new expanded programs or projects. I think I defined it to the best I can. It's just an application at this point.
I would move that the board approve the grant application and renewals as presented.
Support?
Moved and supported. Vote please.
I vote yes.
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 Motion carries.
Tell Kim, good job.
All right, next item, 10, list of bills dated January 24th, 2018, and February 14th, 2018, plus add-ons.
And there are no add-ins this time.
All right, so,
I would move to approve the list of bills for January 24th, 2018 and February 14th, 2018 as presented.
Support.
moved and supported. Vote please.
Mr. Salvia?
Yes?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, public comment. Your name and address and phone number and, no, I believe.
Social Security number, Susan Anderson, 3301 Saddle Ridge Farms. Being part of the Activity Council, Activity Center Council, and also the leader of one of our activity groups being the Friday Night Euchre people, did you decide to tie our closing of the center with the school or not to?
It will not be tied to the school.
That's what I was afraid of. How are my people, or any of the people that come to the center, gonna know if it's closed? Because right now, we
You
have
better
given
look at that
them a
language.
little phone number for the Huron Valley Schools. You know how they have that phone you can call? Well, if we're not gonna be tied to that, how are our people gonna know when the center's closed? Because I don't think there's any like recording when you call up to say the center will be closed today or whatever. So,
I think we'll have to work on developing a notification plan.
well, yeah, okay, because I know it used back to when Edna Green was working there, she told me, she says, we're not tied to the schools. And then all of a sudden, just this last storm or whatever, it closed. And, and they said, well, yeah, we are tied to the schools. And so then I was confused.
And we're confused too, because the problems that arise from it is what we're trying to address, and it's how do you deal with the labor component, how do you deal with safety and all those issues, and as you can tell, the schools look at it from a different perspective. I think just common sense under the conditions we had in the 12-inch dump would say that was a closure, you weren't gonna make it, because if you went out, you had enough trouble driving through it.
Right.
But we do have quite a few communication systems that we've been working on. We've got the Next Door
website, yep.
website, which Tammy and Judy and whoever's been watching over that do a really good job of putting notices out.
Except that a lot of my people are not.
And then there's, you could go probably on our website, we would be able to do that.
What I'd like is a
You
phone
could
number.
call.
Yeah.
You could call the township.
Oh, call the township?
Yeah, and if we're open, and you'll get an answer that's open, so.
Okay, so it'll be tied to the township then, as opposed to the schools. That'd
Right.
be perfect.
And yours is during the day.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so you would know pretty early whether it's gonna be too much for you to do.
Yeah, but I don't want them calling me.
Well, the other part of it is that's part of the process. If you got a group, you need to manage your group. So one person needs to be the lead person that communicates with us, and then you have to do your part. So we do that the same way with our employees. One, I say no, and these two, and they say no to everybody else, and so it spreads out that way. So it makes it a lot more efficient.
Okay.
But I appreciate that, because that's been the problem is, how many years have we had where it's been really no weather issues at all? And then this year it's kind of smacked us, so
Yeah. Okay.
appreciate it.
I know, Rick, kind of one of the problems or a issue maybe, or a challenge is Huron Valley Schools is Commerce, Milford, Highland, and part of White Lake, and that could be different than just us. We're just Highland, and maybe our streets are fine or something, and they're not over there, and they make that call. So that's why, in a way, it might be better you're not tied to the
Right,
schools.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a good point, because you can think of, I know there's times when I've driven from Wixom, and then get here, and whoa, or the vice versa,
Yeah, you never know.
So we don't have that. We can't drive around looking for that knowledge all the time. But
Okay.
all right, so we'll work with us.
Yeah, that's a
And
good point to bring.
part of our community roundtable that Judy's been spearheading is to figure out how do we communicate with everybody.
Super. Okay.
So as many avenues as we can get out there, and then last not least, you call Nancy at home.
I know everything.
Okay, thank you.
Go, girl.
Because she'll be on the phone, what did you do? So thank you very much. All right, any other comments?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, your name and address.
Two questions. I'm Bill Anderson. I live on Saddle Ridge, and I live with this young lady here. I have, there was a mention of a nuisance issue with, you know, like you said, with sound or whatever, and I was just wondering, are there issues with nuisance when it comes to burning of wood or whatever, and the smoke and the inversions that can occur? I know we have neighbors that like to heat with wood, and when the wind doesn't blow, if my heating system pulls air through whatever it needs to pull, I think my house is on fire because I'm pulling the smoke from my neighbors. If I go outdoors, I can see that there's an inversion occurring. Is there something that says that that's not a good thing to have going on?
Well, I almost got myself lynched over this issue a few years back. And I don't have the answer to that. I would wish that people would be extremely reasonable with burning, but yes, there is a nuisance, and Lieutenant Snyder and the fire chief could probably answer that question better, so I'm gonna throw it in your park there.
But are you talking about just a regular chimney fire, though? I mean,
Yeah,
you're
these
not
people,
talking about
they're doing home heating probably with
Yeah,
wood.
he's not talking about
Cold
outside
weather,
burning.
you're talking
He's
about cold weather, you get a
house.
nice quiet
He's talking
evening,
about the
no
smoke.
wind.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's coming out of the chimney, or they
Yeah.
have one
Well,
of
I
those
don't know, I
units?
can't,
Is there a burning
running
unit?
around at night, it's hard to spot the
Is
chimney.
there a burning unit in the backyard, like a separate where they put the
I
wood
have
in daily?
no
Like
idea.
my brother-in-law has up north?
I have no idea. All I know is that it occurred about 4 times this winter, and I'm running out to see if my outbuilding is on fire, or if there's something else on fire, because I can smell smoke in my house. I'm running around the house looking to see that.
That is an issue with the high efficiency furnaces, is that they're sucking the air in from outside.
Well, no, I'm not talking about high efficiency furnaces. I'm just talking about people that have wood burners.
You can always call our dispatch and have somebody come out if it's something you're not sure where it's coming or whatever. We'll come out and look, and our deputies will, you know, you could call the fire department, or you can come us, we'll come out and check it out.
Okay. Well, I mean, like I said, I'm concerned because my nose is sensitive enough that I'm saying, gee whiz, I gotta run out back and see if the barn's on fire, for Pete's sake.
Sure, but I think what the supervisor was saying is that with high efficiency furnace nowadays, they pull the air in
It's the
from
fresh air
outside
intake, yep.
instead of recirculating the.
Well, unfortunately, I haven't upgraded to the high efficiency.
You have not?
No. Gee.
No,
I have a gas 83% efficient boiler.
I
Natural
wonder why
gas.
it's drawn in then.
It has its own combustion and chimney, so it has to pull through your outlets, through your door seals, through whatever. Fans, you got exhaust fans, they don't always have a flapper on.
All right, well,
So, that sort of thing can come through.
I don't know the answer to that. I guess you could complain, and we could consider it a nuisance and have somebody go out and look at it. And that's about the extent of it.
Okay, yeah.
Gary?
As far as a township ordinance or a state law, I have never encountered one that suggests that somebody that has a lawful wood-burning device may not use it because of climatic conditions outside. And I would encourage against the township going down a path that activity, which is totally lawful, somehow constitutes a nuisance. That's in terms of a regulatory approach. Could a private homeowner claim that conduct by another property owner was causing them a nuisance? Maybe, but I don't think this is an issue that the township would ever be able to do anything about.
You mean in terms of addressing it as an ordinance?
Right.
Yeah, like I said, I almost got lynched over that, so I'm not.
I respect the fact that people have got to heat their homes, but on the other hand, you got to breathe the air too.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I'm sorry, I can't give you an answer on that other than you knock on the neighbor's door and say, I'm having a hard time breathing, and it's coming from your chimney, or talk to your neighbor during the daytime and say, here's some of the issues that I've had.
And I've got a lot of neighbors that I don't know how far away this is coming from. That's all.
Well, you probably should be able to see it sometime during the day too. But so, all right. Well,
I have one other question.
Well, we ran out of your 3-minute time frame, but go ahead and let's. And then we got to move on.
Because I read the newspaper and listen to the news, and I've heard that there are some potentials for some of the recyclables that the Chinese process for us, that the Chinese are being more selective about this. and they are going to not accept, quote, dirty recyclables. In other words, things that are all mixed together. Has there been any impact that's come back down from our trash haulers that's gonna say, hey,
Not at this point.
where you have to really sort the stuff out and you got your tins over here and your plastics over here and your glasses over here? Because when I see them come down the street, it all goes in one hopper and I say, wait a minute, how do you recycle this? Is there somebody that's sorting all of this?
Yes, there is. What they do is they take those trucks over by the old Silver Dome and they dump them, and they have people that actually sort it.
I'll be darned.
There's
Well,
machines.
there's your answer.
Okay.
So it does not all go in one. Sometimes though, they do have to go out and put them in the regular trash, but
Yeah.
they every case they can, they do not do that, but they do sort it, so.
Okay.
But
All
when
right.
we first started recycling, we had to do that.
We had to sort
colored
originally,
glass,
yep.
and the white glass and the metal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and they had individual bins,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
everything goes thrown in.
Well, be prepared for your trash to go up in price, because if Mr. Snyder gets his way, there'll be a significant increase in cost. So,
Okay.
don't call us screaming at us, what'd you do? Because we aren't doing it, so, thank you very much. All right, we now, need a motion for number 12.
I move that we go to closed session for an opinion from our attorney.
To discuss confidential attorney-client privilege opinion and correspondence regarding personnel issue?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Yes. All right, we've returned from closed session.
9:16.
Made our discussions with the attorney, and time to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
No,
Don't need one.
No.
So, meeting adjourned.